Hi, my name is Jay Sugarman, and I want to welcome you to Innovation Showcase. The main purpose of this ongoing series is to inform viewers about exciting innovations and creative individuals across the fields of business, science, technology, education, and the arts. Today, via Zoom, we're fortunate to have as our guest Paul Rohrbaugh. Paul is a former history teacher and librarian, and he's also the founder and owner of High Flying Dice Games, an Ohio-based company that designs and creates a wide range of history-related board games. During the program, we're learning why and how High Flying Dice Games came about and how it's grown, developed, and operates today. Let's start by meeting Paul and then finding out all about his game-making enterprise. Welcome, Paul. So delighted you're able to be here.
Thank you for having me, Jay.
Now, I'm eager to hear about the wide range of games that you've developed and how you go about the creative process. But before we jump right to that, I think it would be of interest if you'd please share just a little bit more about your background and professional interests.
Sure. I started off as a teacher. I taught for 2 years in Teacher Corps. The last cadre of before it was went defunct in 1981, and then I taught 7th and 8th grade history and reading and also enrichment activities at a local area school. Did that for 7 years. Then I went on and it was a private school, and I left there. I became a librarian, followed in my wife's footsteps, and was a librarian at the McKinley Memorial Library in Niles, Ohio. And besides being the librarian, my title was Public Services Librarian. I also got to do all the programming in the President McKinley Museum that was attached to it. And that was fun. And I did that for 4 years, and I became the library director at East Liverpool Library, helped them oversee the restoration and conservatorship of that library. And then I went from there to YSU, Youngstown State University, and became the librarian in the College of Education. And I did that for 10 years. And then moved up to the faculty and taught intro to ed classes, educational technology classes, and occasionally got to supervise student teachers in social studies and in the language arts. And then I retired from that in 2017, and here I am.
Terrific. Well, why and how did your interest in creating games come about?
Well, I always I got involved in board gaming, wargaming, when I was 12 years old. I had, like most little boys, I had played with little, toy soldiers and stuff, and I built models and things. And very early on, I was probably about 8 years old, I started with some of my neighbor friends playing with rules, miniature rules, with those. And not just play, bang, bang, shoot them up, actually with rules, Donald Featherston and some of the others. And my mother and father thought that was great because it was great for mathematics. And, in learning more, because we got the books from the library, then I wanted to read more about history. And then when I discovered board games, the miniatures all went out the door, and I just was thoroughly into board games. And I was starting to tinker with those games and designing my own games right off. I can remember using the parts, the counters from Africa Corps and Waterloo and some of the others to make up my own maps and my own rules, and we'd play with those. And then when I started teaching, I just went right into using games. It was fortunate too that I had some really good history teachers in high school, and we had gaming clubs. Not just chess, but we had a board game club. And I can remember we got involved. I think now looking back in hindsight, I think got involved with playtesting the GDW World Europe, Africa monster games, because what we were playing was basically a prototype of that, what would eventually be published a few years later. And then we designed our own game on the Battle of Antietam. And we actually got written up in the local newspaper and our pictures taken for that with that. And then when I went into teacher corps, they were encouraging people, all the interns, to use games, all sorts of games. We played some games during our 6-week training in California. One of the most notable ones I remember was Bafa, and I used that every year I taught when I with my students in seventh and eighth grade, and it just went from there. I mean, we were teaching. I designed a game on the Cold War that we used with my 8th graders when we talked about the Cold War period. And then when I taught at the National College, I made a game on World War I, similar to that. That on how World War I led up to it, how it broke out, and so it's and when I used my own version of what I call Jeopardy to help kids review for tests at every grade level, even the university. So it's always been something that's in my toolbox to use games to help kids learn.
How did High Flying Dice Games come about?
Well, I had been published with, I got first published in 1999 with Microgame Design Group, with Carrie Anderson. And then I submitted a game to Against the Odds magazine back in the, I think it was 1996 or 97, around that time period too. I'm sorry, no, around 2000. And they took one of my games, and since then I became a developer, and they've been publishing other games of mine. But in 2008, when the economy went south, several publishers went under, and it looked like if I was going to get any games published, I'm going to have to start my own company. But one of the things that happened with Against the Odds is the graphic artist resigned suddenly. He quit, and they needed a new graphic artist. So the publisher was interviewing other graphic artists, and one of them was Bruce Yerian, and the publisher would give each graphic artist a different game of mine that I had submitted to see what they could do. Bruce didn't get the job, but he was very intrigued with the game of mine that he was given to work on. So he emailed me and asked, would you be interested in forming a company and publishing stuff? And that's how High Flying Dice Games got started. We came out in the fall of 2010. 2011 was our first full year, and it's been growing ever since.
Well, to give a sense of the growth and development over the years, see this image here highlighting different catalogs. Could you give us a overall review of the range of content that you have covered in the games?
Sure. And these aren't just my games. One of the things I wanted to go do with High Flying Dice Games, and Bruce completely concurred, was I wanted to give other designers and artists and play testers and folks a chance to break out into this wonderful genre of board gaming and war gaming. And just like Carrie Anderson did for me with Microgame Design Group, I wanted to pay it forward and pass it on. And that's what these are. And the other thing is that besides trying to encourage new people to come into this field of endeavor, was to create games that on topics that have seen little or no treatment in history in game form before. So we take pride in that. We don't need another a 40th game on Gettysburg, or or the Battle of the Bulge. We try to use games to push the envelope in terms of what can be done in terms of game design, but also in game topic. So our professional editions, those are games that what many people would call would think of as in terms of production values. These are games that have die cut counters, can come in a box, or you can get them in a Ziploc bag. Excuse me. The games have the rules are in booklets, full color. The production values are much glossier, I guess, in terms of that. But the other games, those are what I guess what other people would call folio. They'll come in. Most of them come in Ziploc bags. The counters are not mounted, but I can provide mounted counters for an additional charge. Series games, those are games that there's more. They're games that have a common design and theme. But so that there's there can be 3, 4, 5, 6 games in a particular series. And then the other ones, those are topics those are different eras of history that are presented. Mini games are ones that like $10 each. And oftentimes you can get those. You can get a mini game for free if you order 4 other games. Solitaire games, those are designed just for solitaire play. Now all the other games, pretty much, they're designed for 2 players, but I very much strongly feel like most games should be enjoyed solo as well as with other people. So when I design or develop any game, they're usually very solitaire friendly. Now there are some other games by other designers where that emphasis isn't there, and that's fine. I respect that from those other designers, and when I develop them, I'll try to create a solo play set of rules or suggestions, but in terms of my games, they almost all have a solitaire play component. Now, one topic that's not here, and unfortunately the link on it went AWOL over the last couple of weeks, was a game called Mahoning Monstrosity. And I could talk more about that later, but that's a fantasy monster type game.
Okay.
So that category isn't there. I may have some other games along those lines, but I have to trademark and copyright licensing has to be negotiated first.
Let's go on and look at some games individually
Sure.
to get a little better sense of what's involved, some of the objectives, and even a little sense of how you will go about, say in this case, profile and courage. When you have the topic in mind, what's some of the steps that you go through to eventually get from an idea to a finished product like this?
Well, this game is actually designed by Rohrbaugh.
Okay.
And this is a case of point where this is a game where Rod emailed me and had been looking for a publisher for this game, had been turned down repeatedly. It was quite discouraged, but he contacted me and asked if High Flying Dice Games would be interested in it. And he sent me the files, and to me this was a slam dunk. First, this is the new designer, and secondly, the game was wonderful. I mean, it just plays wonderfully. It was very easy to develop. He could tell he spent a lot of time and effort in crafting this. So I mean, I'm very proud of having this up there, and as part of our catalog. And again, it exemplifies what one of our mission statements of High Flying Dice Games, to get new people in, and again, present topics that have seen little to no treatment. And I just scratch my head, why did other publishers turn this down?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great little game.
Well, let's move on to this one here, Innocence Lost.
This is Roberto Chiavini's game. And again, a great, a wonderful person, a good friend. I actually met Roberto. We've been to Italy twice, and I've got to meet Roberto. When my first game to ever be published was Trampling Out the Vintage, the Atlanta campaign. And Roberto was one of the first customers. He snagged it real fast from Kerry Anderson, Microgame Design Group, and emailed me right away. He loved the game. He pointed out a few things that needed some tweaks and stuff, and we quickly incorporated them in. And that just started a friendship that's gone ever since. Roberto made, he's a very prolific, very talented game designer. And he likes to do, now the Bull Run is an exception, but most of his games are on topics that people have not seen much in terms of games. We're very similar in design approach and philosophy. Unfortunately, he went the route of going and providing his games as free downloads. And he lives in Italy, and their copyright and trademark laws are not the same as here. And he got nothing for his games. And so he was very discouraged, and he said he was done with it, the hell with it. He was quitting the game design. It was over. When I started High Flying Dice Games, I approached him and I told him, Roberto, I'm starting this company. We will never, ever, ever sell files. We're only selling print copies. I would love to be able to publish your games in as part of the High Flying Dice catalog. And he's back into it. And his games are some of our best sellers.
Nice. How about this one here?
City of Confusion. Yes, this is my game One Way. This is my game design. And this is a case, again, where the graphic artist is Niels Johansson. Wonderful. All the people I work with are wonderful, but Niels has his own, of course, his own unique style, like any graphic artist. He's very talented. And he bought one of my games right after we started, and he loved it, and he asked if he could do graphic artwork for it. He wanted to get into doing graphic artists for board games. He had never done that before. I said, sure. He did his first game was Breaking into Valhalla, Operations Veritable and Grenade. And then he did this game, My Battle for Way. This won a Charles S. Roberts Award, but my second one, but I really think it was because of Neil's graphics that I got that award. Niels, when he first started, like I said, this is the second game he did. But his regular job at the time, he was in charge of the Asian division. He was based in Hong Kong for Prada. He was one of the leading fashion designers for Prada. He has since then because of the COVID pandemic, he left Hong Kong, went to Italy, to Prada's headquarters in Milan. They weren't happy, apparently. Things didn't work out. So he's now in Paris, and he's an independent fashion consultant in Paris. So, I mean, I consider myself very, very lucky that he's working with us. And he's doing artwork for other game companies, which thrills me to no end.
Nice.
So
well, let's give another sampling here.
This is a game, one of my games in solitaire play games, and it's a series of games on famous raids done by the Decima Mas, the Italian scuba divers and mini sub commandos of World War II. And the artwork is done by Darius Bruszewski, another graphic artist who debuted as an artist in board gaming with High Flying Dice Games. And so again, I'm very proud of what he does here. and he's done all the artwork for all of this series of games and several other games of ours. And again, now he's increasingly busy with other publishers,
Nice.
which is good because he because unfortunately right now he's had some difficult time because he it lives in Eastern Europe, and once the war, a company he worked with did a lot of their work with in Russia. Well, once the Russia invaded Ukraine, that company, stopped doing business, and of course they lost a lot of work. So he's been increasingly relying upon game work to help make ends meet. So I'm glad we helped get him started and out there, because it's work that now he's increasingly involved with and actually needs.
Nice. Well, moving on to Desert Eagle shows again the range and depth of content.
Yep.
A quick word about this game, please.
Yes, this is another new artist that we got involved with, David Prieto Gomez. This is his first game that he did for us, and I've used this is a design I came up with for a postcard game that the first one, Showtime Hanoi, air battles during 1972 Vietnam War, and I've used that design to cover air battles and air warfare in other eras. And this is one of those that is set during the 1948 Arab-Israeli conflict. And again, this was the initial debut game for a new artist.
Wonderful, wonderful. How about September Eagles?
Oh yeah, this is I'm very proud of this one. Although the price is wrong, we've lowered the price to $60 now. But this is a game that it's on the Thompson Trophy Air Races. For me, this is local history. From this 1929 to 39, the National Air Races were held, and they were the primary engine for innovation and change and innovation in aviation. And the climate, and it was held over Labor Day weekend. And the climatic air race was the Thompson Trophy Air Race, which was held on Labor Day, 12 noon. And there were no rules. Whatever you wanted to race, you could race. And these planes were increasingly more powerful, advanced technology, and they were held mostly in Cleveland, Ohio. They started in LA. There were a couple in Chicago, but the bulk of them were in Cleveland, Ohio. And I was fascinated by this when I first learned of this when I was probably about 10 years old. I can remember going to Cleveland Municipal Airport and seeing Cook Cleveland's airplane, his Corsair, the last winner in the 1949 Thompson, was on display out in front of the airport. And I started thinking about this as a game. And after school, when I taught 7th and 8th grade, my students, if they had done all their homework, they didn't have any detentions, they could come after school and we could do fun stuff, build models, play games, stuff like that. We would rehearse plays. But one of the things we did was play test September's Eagles. And this game I've been working on it's like early 80s. And so I was very proud to get this out. It's the only game I know of that's on the Thompson Trophy Air Races. And
about how many games does your company have available now?
We're probably well over 100 right now. And so it's in a growing catalog. We've been releasing a game a month since we started, at least a game a month, sometimes 2 games a month. And we have enough product in the pipeline right now to last us probably another 2 years.
Oh, fabulous.
And I got no more designs, submissions, and I'd stop designing today. We still could come out with something new.
What do you hope people appreciate and maybe take away from playing the different games?
I sure hope they come away with an increased understanding and appreciation of the history that's being, that's being played here. And I certainly hope it encourages to want to learn more. All the games have bibliographies, and if it's primary sources in many cases, and also sources that, thanks to our great public libraries and so forth, that they can actually, go out and get easily and quickly, besides things that are on the internet.
Mhm. What's been some of the reaction and feedback you've received from customers?
It's very, very good. I mean, a lot of our games have been reviewed over the years, and they're very, very positive. They're you can't please everybody. There's going to be people who are, what they think a game isn't a game unless it has die cut counters, it comes in a box and is a mounted map board. Those people, okay, you're never going to get them. But people who actually play them are very, very, very pleased. I've got really good word of mouth business too. So we've never, our business has always been growing since we started. We've never had a year-to-year sales decline. We've always had sales growth from one year to another, which is great.
What's a little advice you might give to others who have an interest in designing and creating a game?
Well, you love what you're doing. Respect the history, and don't rush it. I mean, most this is not something, and don't expect you're going to get rich doing it either. I mean, you have to enjoy working with people and teaching. I mean, that's what these are. They're narrative history, basically, and you're teaching history. And so if you like to do those things, then you should do well with gaming. I mean, it's and it's a collaborative process. I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, you listen, all of these games are, every single one is the product is a team effort. Play testers especially, they are the unsung heroes of game design. Play testers are the ones that really will make a game and help it work. Listen to them, pay attention to them. The graphic art, graphic artists and developers are wonderful people, and I like to design games, and I love reading history, and I love presenting history in game form. I know absolutely nothing about. I'm a lousy artist, and I will never ever tell any artist what to do. I give them the files and I say run with it.
Mm.
And as long as they're, and that's the other thing, I've been blessed with artists who actually like to play games. That is not always the case. I have learned to my chagrin with other publishers and other endeavors that that actually hurts and can slow things up. But if you can get people who like to play games all working together, that's you've got lightning in a bottle. So I guess those are some of the things I found successful.
Well, Paul, unfortunately, we've come to the end of our time. I want to thank you so much for sharing your background, the history of gaming that you've been involved with, continued work that you're involved with. Wish you the best with future endeavors. And I know in the credits, we'll have contact information for High Flying Dice Games.
Well, thank you.
Thanks again, and look forward to keeping involved via the internet and your upcoming creations.
Great. All the best. And thanks again for this wonderful opportunity.
Also want to thank those of you watching for joining us, and hope to be able to tune in next time.